Insecurity plays a huge role in intuitive development. Today, I want to talk about why that is, how to look for the triggers that are sparking that insecurity, and what tools you can use to break through it and find your strength.
This is your moment. This is your moment in time. This is your moment. This is your moment.
When I first opened up, you may have heard this story. I get it, but bear with me here. When I first opened up, I was a complete skeptic. I didn't have anyone around me in the spiritual realms. I was very much in the material world, in the business world. There was, not to mention this was back in the early 2000s. So we were still very, tight around our creativity and not expressing ourselves as much as we are today. There just wasn't a whole lot of talk about it. I mean, I could go on. But when I opened up intuitively, I opened up because my grandmother, right after passing away, showed up in my living room, and I had to explore, is this real? I did find out it was. The proof that she gave me was undeniable, and I decided to step into my spiritual path. That was step one. Step two was coming to terms with this, coming to terms with all of the judgment that I had built up around it over the years, all of the, fears that I had, and the insecurities, lots of them. I still recall when people would ask me what I did, I still recalled those moments of bravery where I needed to say, I'm an intuitive, I'm a medium. And back then people would say, well, what's medium? I'm not familiar with it. And again, early 2000s in this, country, we weren't talking a whole lot about mediums and psychics. Some people were aware of them, but it wasn't really a very popular topic. It wasn't in the mainstream. Few shows came out, some awareness came out. Now, flip a channel at 1 a.m, you're going to find a ghost hunting team somewhere. But back then, it wasn't as popular. So I would have to explain to somebody what that was, and then stand there and wait for the judgment. And that's what I did. I waited for the judgment. It's like, here it comes. It's coming now. Here it is. And you know what I found over and over again? I found that people would do one of two things. They would say, oh, that's fascinating. I'm so interested in that. Let's connect. Or because they were desperate for connection with other people that were into the spiritual realms, or they would say, I don't believe in any of that. It's not real. But here comes the but. I can't tell you how many times I heard this, but there was this one time. Every time there was this one time, and then they would proceed to tell me a story about a haunted moment, or seeing something, or having a particular dream that came true. And I found that fascinating. It was rare that I ever came across someone that said, nope, not real, isn't going to happen. Nope, you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. I never really came up against the judgment that I was so scared to come up against. Even the people that drew the line in the sand really quickly and said to me, that's not my thing, usually followed it up with, but there was this one time. And I started to think about that. I realized this isn't about whether all of us are experiencing things beyond the physical. This is about the judgment attached to it. And it's that judgment that punches our insecurity square in the gut and says, be fearful, be worrisome, be concerned what others are going to think of you. Stop for a minute and think too, in all the cultures across the globe, in all of the civilizations, all of the people, all the paths that people walk, there are insecurities in a lot of different areas. And those insecurities tend to be based in what society tells us is good or bad, right or wrong. And you know me, I am not about right or wrong. I'm about on path and off path. And if we don't have people stepping onto their path and living their authentic selves, then we don't have people to help people when they need it in different areas. If not one single person ever wanted to design anything beautiful, then when someone comes into this earth and that's their ultimate, craving. That's what their soul calls for, is to become an artist. They have absolutely nobody to turn to, absolutely nobody to look up to, and absolutely no way to navigate themselves and how they can explore this, because the tools aren't there, because the judgment is too big. When we think about judgment, I want you to think about what standards were set up. Now, I'm only talking in one arena today. I'm talking in the spiritual realms. That's it. Spirituality, not religion, spirituality, exploring your own direct connection to your source, experiencing your personal, authentic, strong, natural intuition, and being able to use that in your day-to-day life, being able to look at another person, even if you're not a professional medium or professional intuitive, being able to look at another person and saying, I know we were supposed to go that direction, but I'm listening to my intuition and it says we shouldn't go that way. And then honoring that. I had a moment where I had a family that I was friends with, and my family was friends with their family, and I was at their house and they all said, let's go out for ice cream. And I was like, rock on, let's go. We left their house, we walked down, the walkway to the driveway, we got into the parking lot, and everything in me said, don't leave. Now, this family was 100% accepting of who I was, what I did, and I was able to turn to them supernaturally and just say, hey, right now, my system is telling me not to leave quite yet. And they looked at me and they said, oh, okay. All right, well, why don't we just chat for a little bit then, and let us know when you feel like we should go. And I was like, cool. And we talked about something random. And then I was like, all right, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the forward movement again. Let's go get some ice cream. And they were like, that's awesome. And we all got in the car, we went and got ice cream. There wasn't any discussion around it. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking to myself, man, wouldn't that be great if that was the way the world was? Wouldn't it be great if one person could say, my most natural and innate connected spiritual sense, which is my intuition, is saying this, and I'm going to listen to it. And the other person says, I honor that in you. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I think that would be wonderful. All right, but it's not that way. So time to get it there. Time to start moving in that direction. Time to start acknowledging your organic intuition. It is a part of you. And the thing that gets me is that it's so natural and it's so strong, but there is a lot of insecurities around it. There's a lot of insecurities of, is it strong? Can I do this? Maybe I'm not intuitive. And then layer on top of that, once you step into that, this is your journey of like navigating through insecurity. Once somebody actually steps into that, then the next step is, what are people going to think? I want to start using this, and I want to be able to, say this and this and this point, and say, you know what, I'm not feeling that right now. I'm going to take a left instead of a right. And how are they going to react to that? Am I ruining people's plans? Am I getting in the way? Am I blah, 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 blah. That's where the next set of insecurities comes from, is how are people going to respond to me saying, here's where I'm at, and I'm allowing myself to be guided by intuition. What's the response going to be? Those insecurities stem really from training, from personal programming, from how were you trained? Or, should you never, make anyone feel uncomfortable? Should you never put a wedge in plans? Don't get in the way. Don't be too loud. Don't be, right? All of those things that we heard growing up, they get in the way. I don't want to bother anyone, but that is being put in a place of insecurity and then staying in that place out of request by another person. And as we move forward, that's the habit, that's the go-to. Whereas here's this moment where none of that even came into play. And I could turn and say, hey, my intuition is saying to just hold on for a little bit and not to leave quite yet. I didn't have a moment of feeling like I was going to upset them or bother them or ruin their plans or anything else. I didn't say, hey, I don't know what your day looks like, and blah, 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 blah. I didn't preface it with anything. It was, this is my truth and this is where I'm at. And the great part is that they didn't have any pushback, because they completely accepted that that's how I function. It was an absolutely wonderful, loving moment. And again, I wish those were the moments that were out there. So here we are. First off, is it real? Here's the insecurity, the beginning insecurities. Is it real? Can I do this too? But I'm not as good as it at it as somebody else is. Then when we finally embrace it and say, okay, this is a natural, normal part of being, here on this earth and being in this human existence, is having a spiritual existence as a human being. Thus, our intuition is very strong. All right, I'm going to start to access it. You start to access your intuition. You start to get these messages. And now step 2 on the insecurity path is, I need to be able to say this, or I want to be able to say, or I want to say this, all of these definitions. And we pause because we're worried about what others will think. We're worried about how others will react. We're worried about, there's a lot of insecurities in that area. Both of these get in the way of intuition. The first stage of insecurity gets in the way because it's a self-doubt. And that self-doubt clogs the intuitive channel. It blocks it. The second stage is really how to bring that intuition into your day-to-day life in conjunction with others. How will this be received? All right. Both of those are completely normal. Both of those are completely natural. They happen all the time. If you were born in a different world, a different culture where intuition was just expected, and you walked down, to the driveway and everyone looked and said, is everyone's intuition good with this? Good. Okay, let's go. If you lived in that world 24/7, there would be no insecurity around using it. Here's what's fascinating to me. All 6 of our senses are natural. They are all 6 available. Sometimes different situations will have one shut down. It'll heighten the others. Sometimes people struggle with being able to hear. Their sight gets stronger, or they have trouble with their sight, their hearing gets stronger. But overall, intuition is strong in every single person, regardless if all 5 of the other senses are, fully strong or not. Everyone's intuition there, because intuition is not based on the functionality of the physical body. Okay, so intuition for everyone is strong. Intuition for everyone is accessible, and your intuitive channel is there. It's just a matter of, is it cluttered or is it decluttered? Decluttered intuition is a beautiful thing. A decluttered intuitive channel flows, and you're able to get information accurately and in the moments that you need it. It's easier to get guide communication. It's easier to communicate with your soul groups on the other side. All of that is possible for each and every person. But when your intuitive channel is clogged and it's cluttered, that's when it's hard to get clear, precise, and accurate and direct intuitive information. One of those things, like I mentioned in the beginning, is insecurity. So when we step in, kind of a conundrum here, but I'm going to challenge you to overcome this. When we step into using our intuition in the beginning, and we have moments of self-doubt, moments of insecurity of if it's possible for us or not, that is a piece of clutter that is in the intuitive channel. Here's the conundrum. Here's the kicker. Getting rid of that piece of clutter in that intuitive channel, that's going to give you more access to your intuition. So I guess what I'm gently asking of you is, if you can find ways, which I'm going to talk about a few tools here at the end of the video, but if you can find ways to set that insecurity aside and shrink it at the same time, because it's very difficult to just eliminate it overnight. You don't have X amount of years of personal programming being told, don't disrupt people, that's not real, that's not real. You'll look crazy if you do this. You have years of personal programming that is feeding that insecurity. So you need to starve that insecurity. You need to starve those concepts until they go. So working toward pulling that insecurity out, identifying it and saying, okay, you sit over here for a minute. I am going to use my intuitive channel. Doing that, and I'll lay it out in some tools, like I said, toward the end. Doing that is going to shrink that insecurity. That's going to step you into the next possible wave of insecurity you might experience. Some don't. I love that. I did. That's just how I was. I went from complete skeptic to open intuitively. And this one did hit me personally hard. Harder than the first one, actually harder than that first stage of insecurity. The second stage of insecurity really hit me hard, which was, what are people going to think of me? What are people going to think of me? You know, here I am, I put on my, back in the day, you know, put on the corporate suit, show up in the corporate meeting. I can't say out loud in this group of individuals that are, you know, personally shut down to intuition and shut down to spirituality, of something that they can't grab onto, something that's not concrete, or it's not in their face, it's not fact, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How am I supposed to sit in this room and say, well, I'm listening to my intuition and my intuition is saying that's not a good idea, we shouldn't go that way. Or I'm listening to my intuition and I can feel that it's pushing us to go in this direction. That's a difficult thing to step into. And now that might be my analogy, because I was, you know, very much in that business mind. The people that I hung out with were entrepreneurs and business people, and they weren't really involved in religion and spirituality. So being able to bring those things into my relationships was difficult, and I feared judgment. Some people might be in a situation where it might not be that business science skeptic environment. It might be a religious environment that does not welcome people to have a direct connection with their source. It's different for all of us. But if you're in a situation where your peeps, I don't even know if you want to say that, because are they? But the people that are around you, your support structure that really do, and many of them love you, they really do, and they're there and support you, but maybe they can't get on board with what you do. So that invites the judgment, that invites that second stage of insecurity. Now, pushing through that second stage of insecurity is a little bit different than pushing through the first stage, and I'll give you tools on that as well. But the second stage of that, being confronted with being judged by the people around you, triggering that insecurity in you, that in essence is more of an approach of understanding what's happening in that moment, rephrasing it so you can walk through that moment authentically. Looking at, okay, I need to get an observer point of view here, a larger point of view, and understand possibly, or allow for the benefit of the doubt of what's happening for this other person in this interaction that is causing judgment and is causing me to feel insecurity. Looking through that, getting the bigger picture is going to give you more courage, and again, going to shrink that insecurity. So let's jump into the tools. That first stage of insecurity that I talked about, where you're stepping into your intuition, you've had a few moments, but you're just not sure if it's real. You're not sure if you can do it. You see this person do it. You see this person, they get all these accurate pieces of information. Wow, you know, and oh, they knew that that person had, you know, 2 kids and, you know, worked full-time or was connected to accounting. You have these messages that come through, and then you're getting feedback, but you're thinking to yourself, my intuition isn't as strong as that person I saw on TV. My intuition isn't as strong as the reader that I've been going to, or, you know, the documentary that I watched, or that famous person. That type of insecurity, again, very natural for a lot of people, because in many, many corners of our society, we've been taught this person's special, the rest of y'all are not. This person has this, the rest of y'all are not. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Intuitive abilities is like being able to play the piano. Most people can play the piano, but then there's Beethoven, right? Or then there's da, 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 right? That's the special factor that's brought out into this world when it comes to intuition. I'm here to tell you, not the case. Some people are indeed called to go out into the world and show the world what it's like when they use their intuition, and how accurate it can be to bring to the world the possibilities of what people can do with their intuition. But the moment a person says, well, my intuition's special or better or more strong than yours, they're wrong. They're incorrect. They're wrong. They're focused on it. Also, here's another thing to think of. They're focused on it every single day, all day, because it's their job. It's what they're good at. You could learn accounting, but an accountant can you know, run circles around you with accounting, because that's what they do every single day, all day. So when you focus on training one of your senses to be really, really strong, same with taste buds. There are professional tasters. Their taste buds aren't special or, you know, magically touched by some other, you know, realm. No, they've honed that ability. That is their calling. They came down to do this. So when it comes to professional intuitives that are out there, professional mediums, professional psychics that you see on television or doing demonstrations, or perhaps it's the professional that you went to for a reading and you're in awe of what they do, thank you to them. Thank you to them, because what they did was they said, look at what's possible. They demonstrated to you what is possible. I knew an evidential medium in New England, and I loved that. I went to one of her group readings and she showed everyone what was possible for your intuition. That's powerful, but it doesn't mean that you don't have it. It doesn't mean that you don't have it. And it's not a matter of, I can't play basketball because I'm 5 feet tall. That is connected to the physical body. It's not a matter of I can't run fast because my hips aren't structured as this way. It has nothing to do with that. It's not connected to your physical body. Intuition is not directly connected. It's not a part of the physical body. It's not connected. It's not limited. So thank you to the professionals out there that have shown the world what's possible for intuition. But I'm going to bring this back to you. Don't let that invite you into the thought process of that person can do it, I cannot. Okay, here's a tool for this stage 1 moment of insecurity that many of us had. I had it too. It's like, well, I might be able to get a little intuition, but I'll never be like that person. That person's incredible with it. Here's what I want you to focus on is the concept that this is not about getting hits or getting accurate information. This is about being in line and on path and being open to what's coming and open to what's around you, to being receptive of the most important pieces of information coming through. Intuition is for guidance. It's why we have it. It's how we have functioned throughout history is through intuition, except for a few little time blocks there. I get it. But for the most part, for the majority of the existence of human beings, we have functioned intuitively. It's called survival. So looking at this as understanding why you're getting intuitive information instead of trying to reach the bar of something that looks like someone else, that's going to open the doorway for your intuitive channel to give you accurate information. What does this look like? It looks like, instead of saying, when am I going to move? Is the house going to sell? Should I get a new car? Should I go to college? Should I do this? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? Am I going to fall in love? When am I going to meet my soulmate? Take all of those questions, put them to the side. If you have to write them down on a piece of paper, fold that paper up, put it in an envelope, put it away in a drawer, and try to forget about it, please do that. But do whatever it takes to take all those questions out of your mind and put them over here. Now, the tool is this. When you have a moment of insecurity around, I wonder if I could be as good at my intuition as anyone else. This is really 2 steps. Say some sort of a sentence to yourself of, my intuition is strong. Any sentence that you want to say, because we all kind of flow differently. My intuition is strong, or my intuitive abilities are strong, or my intuitive channel is open, or I am so in touch with my intuition. Whatever that sentence is that resonates with you, that's step 1. Say that. If you can say that within yourself, it's great. If you can say it out loud, it's wonderful. If you can say it looking into a mirror, looking at yourself in a mirror, rock star, you've nailed it. But you say that sentence, and you say that sentence with conviction. You say it as if you're saying the sky is blue. This is a fact. This is how it is. My intuition is strong. And then I want you to go within, get calm, get just as centered as you can, take 3 deep breaths and say the next sentence. What is it you want me to know? Now you're saying this to your intuitive channel. All right. Step 3, write down what happens. Do this like a couple times a day. Make this a habit. Wake up in the morning. I always connect everything to brushing our teeth. I don't know why, because it's like a universal, habit that everybody really should do. So, you're in the bathroom, you get done, you brush your teeth, you say, look in the mirror and you look at yourself and you say, my intuition is strong. You get centered, and then you say, what is it you want me to know? And you're asking that question to your intuition. receive the message. The message could be goosebumps. It could be an image. It could be a feeling. It could be anything. Write that down in a journal. Rinse and repeat. Do it again. Do it again in the afternoon. Do it again at night before you go to bed. Do it in the morning. Make this a habit. The habit, the reclaiming of your intuitive strength, those are going to overcome the insecurity. What I'm asking you to do with this tool, looking in the mirror, my intuition is strong, getting centered. What is it you want me to know? This tool is taking you away from that spiral of, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder. I'm bringing you into a space of, there is no wondering. There is just doing. This is what we're going to do. That's all there is to it. Here we go. And if you can hold yourself in that space just for 30 seconds, a couple times a day, it'll start to become a pattern. Then the insecurity, which is over here shrinking, okay? That insecurity that's shrinking it's gonna lose its grip. It's gonna lose its hold on you. It's gonna be like, well, look at everything that you wrote down. You know, I have something called the No Doubt Notebook, and I absolutely love it. You know what? There's a free link to a video on it, and it discusses why writing these things down can help our physical synapses in our brain get us into our actual reality, what's actually real, which is our intuition working for us. And the No Doubt Notebook is very powerful. In essence, that's kind of what I'm asking you to do. You know, 3 steps. My intuition is strong, centering yourself. What is it you want me to know? I guess that would add the 4th step on there, would be writing it down in the notebook. If you want to learn about the No Doubt Notebook, I'll put a link in here. Okay, the second stage, that's your tool for the first stage. The second stage of insecurity is, what is everyone else going to think about me? Like, what are they going to think about me? How is this going to be received? What am I going to do? You know, et cetera, et cetera. There's a couple ways to approach this one. My favorite is what I mentioned earlier, but I want to also bring up this other piece: find community. Find community, because when you find others that look at you and say, you are perfect, you are beautiful exactly the way you are. Yes, your intuition is working. Hey, let me share what happened with mine. When you submerge yourself in a community where it's happening for a lot of people, something happens. You see that it's normal. You see that that's how it can work. That's how it can be organically. People are doing this everywhere, and you'll stop feeling so alone with it. When you stop feeling alone with it, that's when it becomes just natural, and you start to use it on a regular basis. You start to say to your friends, hey, my intuition says we should just hold off for 5 minutes. And they're like, cool. That's where you're headed. That's where we're all headed. There's just a few of us that kind of, you know, kicking down the gate out of the go here. So when it comes to being comfortable with yourself and your intuition and all that is natural to you, finding community where you can be 100% of your beautiful self in that community is really important, where you are accepted, where you are not judged, where you are held in high regard, where you are loved. Find that community. Again, I can put a link in here for you for that as well, specifically for an intuitive spiritual community. Okay, here's what I want to go into for stage 2 of these insecurities, which is starting to get a bigger picture. When you are faced with confrontation or judgment from another person about you using your intuition or following your spiritual path in your day-to-day life as if it is natural, because it is. When you're faced with a situation where you are judged or confronted, that's going to spark your insecurity. When it sparks your insecurity, you go in and you grab onto that insecurity and you say, okay, I'm gonna hold on tight to you because I'm a little freaked out right now. Here's the tool. Take a couple deep breaths, all right? And then ask yourself to go into an observer position. What that's gonna do is it's going to release that grip on that trigger, that insecurity tendency. It's going to release the grip on that, and it's going to open up the observer position. What is the observer position? It is looking at things in a bigger picture. Maybe this person is approaching this for a different reason than I think they are. Because when judgment comes, when your insecurity goes tight, you're holding on internally and thinking it's me, or I'm making this person, all that personal programming is just wrapping tight around here. But when we open up to that bigger picture and we say, there might be more going on here than what I'm seeing on the surface, that's when we can regain our strength. What do I mean by this? I mean, upon stepping into that observer position and looking at that individual from a bigger picture, we start to see insecurity where it actually is, not within you, but within them. Think of it this way. I heard this wonderful saying, and I love it so much. Rudeness is an insecure person trying to show strength. That could not be more true. If you are strong, if you're secure, you don't need to be rude. You don't need to position above someone else. Anyone that's positioning above you has really deep set insecurities. Insecurities of being lost, insecurities of burning in hell, insecurities, like all of these things that were piled on them, okay? Not on you, piled on them. And their need to control their external environment and control other people around this definition of their own insecurity is what's causing this interaction to happen. They're lunging at you with judgment, with fear, and in a controlling manner, in a fear-based controlling manner. They're not approaching with love. They're not saying, this is interesting, tell me more. Oh, that's your path. I think that's interesting. It's not my path, but that's your path. And I think that's really great. That's a secure human being. That's an evolved human being. I was traveling once and I saw a gentleman who had a faith that the world was going to end. This was back in 2011, 2012. And we were RVing, and he had an RV, and it was filled with, we're doomed, the world's ending, God hates you. It was just a lot, letters and phrases, all words all over the exterior of his RV. And he pulled into the lot, and I looked out there and I thought, I have to talk to this man. I have to talk to this man, because what I saw was conviction and strength on his path. I saw somebody that was on their path and they were just so committed to it. So I had to go over there and I introduced myself, told him exactly who I was. I was like, hey, what unfolded was beautiful, because it was two souls who did not need to change each other's minds, who actually were compassionate for each other. I told him, I speak to, the deceased on the other side. And he was like, well, on my path, that's a sin. And on my path, you'd be going to hell. Maybe that's not the case on yours. Two beautiful souls who were on path. I didn't judge him. He didn't judge me. I will say it was a bizarre situation in that sense, because wow, you could get into judgment there, couldn't you? But neither of us judged each other. It was really powerful. I asked him a question and I said, I need to ask this question of you. And I said, when the day comes, because there was a date right on his RV of when the world was ending. And he had given up his job and everything else, and money and all that type of stuff. He had let it all go. And I said, when the date happens, when the day comes, what happens when you wake up the next morning and it didn't happen? And he said the coolest thing to me, and I wasn't asking out of judgment. I prefaced it by saying, I'm just really curious because I love how powerful you are with your path. Like, I love that. And he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, I can't let myself go down that road. That's not on my path. This is my path. And I was just like, it was really amazing. There isn't right and wrong. There's on path, off path. When one person pushes their path onto your path, that's where everything goes awry. That's an act of insecurity. So when somebody is pushing judgment at you, and they're pushing their agenda at you, you have to do it this way, or that's not real, all of those types of things, they're on path. They're just pushing their path onto you. That's insecurity. That's insecurity. So your insecure reaction to it going inward is protective. Their insecure reaction to you is aggressive. Okay, so seeing this larger picture and being able to look at it and saying, okay, well, they must be behaving for this for a reason, and starting to identify their insecurity. Don't even have to put it on them, just identify it. Takes it out of here and gives it to them. So your tool. Just take a moment and say, okay, I'm feeling that I went inside. I'm feeling that I'm trying to protect myself here. So I'm going to take a deep breath. So step 1, take a deep breath in the situation. Step 2, disconnect from the conversation. Completely disconnect from it. Let it be just want happening in front of you. Do not receive it. Put it back out here. All right. And then look with the observer position with love for the individual. This is a moment of giving them the benefit of the doubt. Something might have happened to them, something, they're dealing with their own personal programming as well, and it's going outward. You don't need to receive that. Thirdly, this is the sentence. I am perfect on my path. You are perfect on your path. If you need to, at that point, end the conversation and move on or change the subject, that's completely fine. But know a few things. When you stop receiving, it's going to push back, not even verbally, it's just going to energetically push back. And at some point, that person's going to be tired of energetically being pushed back on and will stop fighting. What you're doing in essence is if we want to put this in a physical analogy, somebody starts swinging at you with boxing gloves, you're putting up plexiglass and saying, I'm not receiving those punches. And at some point, energetically, especially a person that's in your circle or a family member or something like this, they're going to get tired of punching plexiglass because they don't land the punch. And that's what they want to do. Landing the punch eases their insecurity. And that's what they want. And when you stop giving them that, they'll stop punching. Might take a little while, especially for that one family member. But eventually they'll stop punching. And here's the cool thing. That's when the calm comes. That's when we relax in and go, okay, maybe we can just be here together. Your path is your path. My path is my path. Now, with that said, we also have to remember that every person has a different path, and every path is unique, and not everyone is coming down here to experience the same thing that you're looking for. Some people come down here, with the full intent before they ever even come down here. Their higher self said, never going to open up spirituality, never going to open up, spiritual paths, never going to do that. Not going to approach it. Going to live a lifetime with my block up from that. As a result of that, I'm going to have all these other experiences over here. That needs to be okay. When that can be okay with you, that another person doesn't have to become an enlightened spiritual being, that sets you free. That sets you free. So the tool for this one, a couple deep breaths, observer position, I'm not receiving that, and stay in a space of love. Okay. Observer position, I'm not receiving that, and stay in a space of love. Let them spiral out. Let them go through their process, right? But don't give their insecurity the moment of relief of connecting painfully with you. Put it that way. Okay. Insecurity is a kicker. It's clutter. It's clutter. We want to get rid of it. We don't want to hold on to it. You're opening up on your spiritual path. This is stepping into a very natural part of your path in this lifetime, using your intuition on a day-to-day basis, being able to rely on it. Oh, this feels right. That doesn't feel right. Being able to follow when that and get into the flow. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful when you can do that. So no comparison to others, getting centered, receiving instead of pushing for intuitive information, receiving it. Also allowing others to be exactly where they are. You don't have to receive it, and continually sending out love. That's what this is about. Your insecurities might not go away overnight, but I'll tell you one thing that they're going to do. They're going to shrink. I'm living proof. I've been doing this since 2005. Yeah. I had many years there in the beginning of insecurity, but pushed through it. And today, I just don't care what others think. I mean, it's lost on me at this point, but I worked on it. And I hope you work on it too, because sitting here today, the freedom that I feel is a beautiful thing. And I want you to have that as well. You're awesome. And I love you.
This is your moment.